afternoon. This is the Board of Appeals, Town of Hempstead, June 7th, 2023, 2 p.m. meeting. Mr. Chairman, do you have any opening remarks?
Ones I have this morning. The protocol that we follow is the applicants will present their cases. Then if there are any objections on any of the cases, we'll let them make their presentation, and we will close the hearing by having the applicant rebut any, or try to rebut whatever the opposition may state. We do have, for the record, we do have some interns from the town attorney's office.
Emma and Jenna, are you here? Okay, so everyone be nice to them and show them how it's done here for those of you who are here on a regular basis. They may be budding town attorneys here, so welcome, ladies.
First case.
First, we have case 36923 near Lynbrook. Natasha and Jason Hunter and Eleanor and James Coney. Variances, lot area occupied, front yard setback on Central Place and Linden Avenue, rear yard construct enclosed porch, addition, second story addition, two-story addition, and two-car garage, all attached to dwelling, also known as 4 Central Place.
Thank you.
My name is Salim Abraham. I reside at 254-10 Francis Lewis Boulevard, Rosedale, New York, and Queens. Good evening. Mr. Salim Abraham. Salim Abraham. I'm from the architect office regarding the application. Correct, yes.
Okay, proceed. You can proceed, sir.
Okay. So, existing house right now is a 1.5 story with 3 bedrooms. The first phase, the owner wanted to add a sunroom facing the side yard towards Linden Avenue. The sunroom will just be a recreative area. And also, the second phase was adding a second story and a attached garage in connection between the garage and the house.
Mr. Abraham, hold on. So you're talking in terms of phases.
Correct.
In our stuff, it's just everything you
You
want
put
to
that together,
do.
yes, but yes.
So when you say phases, what your net effect is, you're telling us about, there's 5 basic things before us. Construct a porch, construct an addition, a second story, a 2-story, and a garage.
Correct, yes.
Attached to the dwelling.
Yes, correct, yes.
So those are the things you're telling us about.
Correct,
And-
yes.
And if you leave out the phase information, because it'll confuse me.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I
Just tell
apologize.
us about your project.
Okay, so the project is number 1 will be the sunroom facing Linden Avenue. If you have the layout, you can see that there's a 6-foot fence surrounding the perimeter of the area that will obstruct people from seeing the sunroom from every point enclosed. Next. Yes, it does. It went also to BZA, also approved per BZA for that fence. Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, we have also an addition to the front porch of the house facing Central Place. Also, we have a detached garage with attached area to extend the first floor. The addition will be ground first for the garage and the portico, the sunroom with the extension. Second story will only stop at the existing footprint of the dwelling. That would be an additional 3 bedrooms upstairs and some bathrooms to accommodate the growing situation with the family. That's encroached with the side yards. The issue that we have in front of us with the sunroom, reduce the side yard from 24.8 to 12.8. And the rest with the 2-car garage, the 5-foot, we do meet that minimum requirement. Yeah, we don't need side. Okay.
You actually only need
Correct, 4%. Correct. No. Correct, yes. Yes, current property, correct. Correct, yes. The one facing Lakeland Avenue. It's what, 24.8. Correct. Correct.
But those are the only three variants that you see.
Correct, yes.
And the only open permit is a proposed sunroom addition, which you're taking care of
Correct,
in this
yes.
application. Is that correct?
That's what triggered the variance today.
You have anything else you'd like to add?
No?
Any complaints from the neighbors?
Excuse me?
Any complaints from the neighbors?
No, some of them, no. As per the owners, talking to neighbors, they're very friendly.
So, Mr. Abrams?
Yes.
There were two other people who signed in on the case in favor of it. That's Mr. Coney and Mr. Hunter. You've presented the case quite well. Do we need them to speak, or can we just?
We can go ahead, it's fine.
Yeah? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would then move that the hearing be closed, the matter be placed on the decision calendar. Mr. Abrams, you'll be notified by mail of the board's decision once it's rendered.
Second.
Thank you
Have a
very
nice
much.
day.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
Thank you again.
Have a nice afternoon, sir.
Next, we have case 37023 Baldwin, 764 Sunrise LLC, doing business as Dunkin' Donuts. Replace, install menu board sign not permitted in conjunction with existing drive-through window, also known as 764 Sunrise Highway.
Gina DiMatteo, 475 Keim Avenue, West Islip, New York. I represent Capital Design and Construction in regards to a new menu board, which is replacing existing.
Is it the caption reads, "replace/install." Are you replacing or installing,
Both,
or both?
both. Our
Okay.
company is
So it's in
doing
the
both.
exact same location?
Exact.
Okay.
Is there two installations? Because the replace, by definition, is take out the old and install one, and then you need also an install.
We're swapping it out, taking old and replacing it by a
It's
new
the
one.
same menu board?
Only one?
Okay.
Only one?
Yes,
Yep.
And in the same location?
yes.
What's different about it?
Newer technology and where you have to change pricing, everything is illuminated and you won't see those little pieces of tape any longer. It's for the betterment of the upcoming times for, yes,
The same thing, roughly speaking, maybe prettier, but would it be the same size?
yes,
Would it not be any louder than what I already experienced?
no.
If I lived near it,
Easier to order from.
if I lived near it,
Mhm.
would it sound any louder from my house than it does now?
No,
And it's not any closer to my house than it was?
nothing
For all
changed.
intents and purposes, it's gonna seem the same to the users and the residents. It's just gonna be more efficient, upgraded technologies.
Exactly.
And
I guess that's the replace portion of the application, correct?
Yes.
Maybe it needs clarification.
If the board were inclined to approve this, we would likely do so with all conditions previously imposed. We often have decibel conditions, lighting conditions, signs where you ask the people who are in line to keep the radios down. You know all the conditions, you're
Yes.
probably aware of them. So we are going to consider this application with the view that we're also going to impose all the prior conditions if we were to approve it.
Right.
Okay, that's acceptable.
It's LED. No.
Any donut of the month to this month, or what?
Sure. No, thank you.
No. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I would move that this hearing be closed, the matter be placed on the decision calendar. You'll be notified by mail of the board's decision once it's rendered.
Okay,
Thank you and have a nice day.
thank you.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed and abstentions? We're going to go out of order now because it seems that there are a lot of people here on case 371 of 23. So if you don't mind, we're going to skip over that case. That may take some time, and we'll go to cases 372 and 373. It's only one case. Oh, no, we have one.
Next, we have case 37223 and 37323 Oceanside. Rosia Di Giovanni. Variances, lot area occupied, front yard average setback, maintain additions attached to dwelling, variances, lot area occupied, maintain shed addition to detached garage, also known as 3084 Roxbury Road. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Yes, I do. Please take a seat and state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Dean Kutsubis. My address is at 121 Newbridge Road, Hicksville, New York, 11801. And
Good afternoon, Mr.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Kutsoulis.
nice to run into you.
You going to
over
play
the
some
weekend.
music or dance for
No,
us?
not today.
Not today?
But I appreciate that you took the case out of order. Much appreciated.
You made quite an impression.
An impression,
Mr.
he did.
Regano tells me, Chairman Regano tells me that you were the DJ at the Greek
Yeah,
Festival.
that's, I was at the festival this past weekend.
You were
It
more
was
than
great.
there, you were DJ.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
It's-
You
It was
get
good.
dance lessons. No.
I should have brought the
Go on,
dancers
Mr.
with me,
Kutsoulis.
but next time. All right, so I'm here today on behalf of Roisa Di Giovanni. She's the owner of the house. She's actually the daughter of the owner. Her parents bought the house more than 50 years ago. At this point, they are looking to sell the house, and part of the sale, there were some additions that were done without permits that she's trying to get the proper COs for in order to prepare the house for a proper sale. The additions that were done was, in the rear, there's a back corner of the house that was squared off, and it has a cellar entrance attached to it. And in the front, there's a vestibule. And behind the garage, there's a shed attached to the garage. We need variances for front yard setback on the vestibule, and that's our smaller variance that we're asking for. That's only approximately 6 inches off from what's required. So the average setback is 17.1 feet, and the encroaches 6.5 feet into that setback, which we're allowed 6-foot encroachment. So that's only about 6 inches off. So that's the
When
smaller.
was that made, Mr. Katsoulis?
I'm sorry?
When was that?
Constructed.
I'm not clear when it was, but it's more than 30 years, if not, the clients have owned the house over 50 years, and the daughter didn't, wasn't sure when, but
Keep going.
all these extensions were all there for many, many years. So the front yard setback is only for that front vestibule, which slightly encroaches. The more substantial variance we're asking for is the lot coverage variance. We're asking for 34% where the maximum is, 34.58% where the maximum is 27.5%. Even before, the challenge here is not that this house is really, really big, it's the property is rather small. It's a 40 by 100 in a B zone, which is rather small. Our total square footage is 1,353 square feet, which is actually less than any, most other houses in a B zone. So, and we even considered taking down, before I even took this on, we considered removing the shed. But even removing the shed, we'd still be over on lot coverage. So there wasn't anything we could have done to really, not ask for a lot coverage variance. We would have been over regardless. So that's why we're asking for the lot coverage variance, 34.58% where the
Mr. Katsounis,
max.
what's in this shed that's attached to the garage that's very big? I mean, very long at least.
Well, it's empty, the house is empty right now as they're looking to sell it, but it was really used for storage of, outdoor,
Any bathroom?
no.
Electrical?
Plumbing?
No electrical? I see
Not
lights
even
on
a
the
light in
outside
the
of it.
bathroom, not even a light in the shed?
I honestly can't remember.
Have you been to the house, Mr. Katsounis?
Yes, I've been to the house.
Okay. And have you
There's
looked in the
definitely-
shed?
There's definitely no plumbing in the shed or the garage.
I know, but we're still stuck on electrical.
Okay.
Well, there is plumbing on the outside of the shed, because there's a hose spigot, but that doesn't mean it's inside, I understand.
Okay.
But we don't know if there's electrical in that shed, because when it's attached to this garage, I mean, the garage combined with that very long shed, it could be converted into a number of things, some of which wouldn't be acceptable. So I'm trying to see, usually there's rough plumbing on the outside, you can always drop it in. There's a peephole door on the garage side, there's some windows. We don't know whether there's heat, we don't know if there's plumbing, we don't know about the electrical.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that I definitely went inside the garage, I went inside the shed, they were empty, totally not livable, nothing, there's no insulation, it's all like wood, all you see is the exposed wood on the
No
inside.
sheetrock on the
No
wall.
sheetrock, no heat.
Concrete on the floor.
It's a wood floor in the shed, concrete on the garage.
Okay. So as it relates to your other addition, which also is part of the lot area occupied variance,
Yes,
I heard you mention a cellar entrance.
Correct.
The cellar entrance itself is not before us in terms of, but it's before us just as it relates to lot area occupied.
correct.
And what's down in this, have you been down in the
Ye-
cellar?
Yes, I went down to the cellar.
What's down there?
It's a finished basement, it has a fireplace, it has a bathroom, has a laundry room with boiler area. And some, it has a fireplace in the cellar.
Some houses.
No, not a, it's a masonry fireplace, it's on the plans, that's actually part of our maintain application.
Is it below the fireplace on the first floor?
Correct, actually, hold on.
I hope so, because I only see one chimney.
No, it's not below the fireplace on the first floor. There's actually 3 chimneys on this house. One for the boiler, one for this fireplace in the cellar,
One
and
for the
a third one for the gas stove on the first floor.
Oh, there you go.
I found the second brick chimney. Are the
Yeah.
2 brick chimneys for the 2 fireplaces and then?
No, the brick chimney closest to the front of the house is for the fireplace in the basement. The second brick chimney is for the boiler and hot water heater, and in the back of the house is another exhaust for the fireplace on the first floor. Which is really it's a gas stove. It's a converted gas stove.
It's number 3. There it goes.
How long ago was the addition?
I'm not clear exactly, but it's been there. From what the client tells me, definitely looking at it over 40 years, I would say, and probably even older than that.
You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 applications pending. Will that take care, will this application take care of all of those? You're going to close them all out, is that right?
5, I'm aware of 3. We have a non-conforming for the dwelling and garage, and
Got
we
it.
have the, the second one for the additions to the house, and then the third one is for the shed attached to the garage.
Okay, you've got one for maintain a first floor gas stove, and a second one for maintain a lower level basement bath, first floor bath, kitchen sink, second floor bath. You're gonna close those out? They're all characterized as being applications, and I don't believe they're closed out. You're gonna
Okay,
close all
yeah,
those out?
that's the intention, is to close all the open permits or.
Okay. What's a PL, Patrick?
Subis, you said that the premises is empty, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure I missed it, but did you say that it was, is it on the market now, or?
To my understanding, it may be off the market. It was, I do believe it was in contract at one point. I don't think that sale went through. So my clients still own the house. I'm not aware if it's on the market now, if they're actively showing
Did your
it.
clients ever live in the house?
Oh, yeah, it was my client's family, it was her family home for over 50 years. They had since moved away, and that's why they're looking to sell the house.
And you've been on all 3 levels, because
I've
we
been-
have the cellar with the full bath and a permit for a kitchen sink down there, but I see it's not shown as a kitchen. We got a fireplace for the first level with all of its accoutrements. We have the attic level that has the full bath too.
Yes.
You know, like if the wrong person buys it, it can be misused. As you know, you've been coming here long enough. So, have you been on every level?
I've been on every level. There is only one kitchen in the house. There's, no indication that it was ever a 2-family or 3-family or whatever. I can't speak for the future owners of this house, unfortunately.
That'll be our job.
Yeah, but,
If you bought it, you could. Go on, Mr.
right now, my client has no intention of doing anything other than selling the house and making sure the COs are in place for a proper sale.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move the hearing be closed, the matter be placed on the decision calendar. Mr. Katsubis, you'll be notified by mail of the board's decision once it's ready.
Second,
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
all in favor?
Don't keep your windows open in this
Any
smoky
opposed?
land.
Yeah, it's bad.
Sorry. Next, we have case 37123 Woodmere. Bas Haknesis, Michigan Yisroel. Special exception for proposed synagogue, proposed temporary trailers, special exception for accessory to religious use, existing dwelling, variances, lot area occupied, front yard setback on North Central Avenue, side yard, rear yard, construct 4 temporary trailers, waive off-street parking, variance, no screening between adjacent residential properties, also known as 223 Franklin Place. Is anybody else speaking, or is it just you guys?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appearing on behalf of the applicant, Howard Avertine, 2116 Merrick Avenue, Merrick. This is the application of Beis Hakneses Mishkan Yisrael for approvals required in order to establish a synagogue. The premises under application is located at the northwest corner of Franklin Place and North Central Avenue in Woodmere. It has a street address of 223 Franklin Place. It is also known as Section 39, Block 213, Lots 41 through 43 on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map. The premises has dimensions of 75 feet in width by 129 feet and a lot area of 9,675 square feet. It is developed with a single-family home and detached garage. By this application, the applicant seeks approvals to install 4 trailers on the premises to serve as a temporary home for the synagogue. The synagogue intends to file for a permanent building in the not-too-distant future. In connection with the proposed installation of the trailers, there'll be a portion of the existing home will necessarily be removed, as well as the detached garage. The approvals required in connection with this application are firstly a special exception for the religious use and to maintain the existing dwelling. In addition, we require variances for lot area occupied. The maximum is 27.5%. Proposed is 45.13%. Also, we require front yard setback relief on North Central Avenue. 25 feet is required, 6.7 feet is proposed. Side yard relief, 20 feet required, 5 feet proposed, 5.1 feet existing on that side. The rear yard, 25 feet required, 5 feet proposed. Also a waiver of off-street parking. 41 spaces are required based upon the building department's calculation of 121 authorized occupants with 0 on-site parking provided. We also require a waiver of the screening requirement. Subsequent to sending out of the notices, our client has, the applicant has spoken to the neighbor directly to the west, who requested, if possible, the trailers be shifted further to the east, and the architect concluded that we could do that. We could move it 2 more feet to increase that yard from 5 feet, from the 5 feet proposed to 7 feet. That would also allow us the ability to put in some evergreen screening there, but it's our understanding that the neighbor to the west would prefer that there not be screening in that area. That obviously will be something within the board's discretion should it approve the application. At this time, if I may, I'd like to hand up a relevant decision to the board. It's under case number 595 of 2022. Decision date January 25, 2023, the application of Rockaway Portfolio LLC, premises at 167 East Rockaway Road in Hewlett, and essentially substantially similar relief was granted to that applicant under this application and the decision that I'm handing in.
Is it our prior trailer?
Yes, from earlier this year. In addition, I have several signatures from surrounding residents within the radius map indicating no objection to the application, and I'd like to submit that. I've also attached to it a copy of the radius map with red check marks to indicate those within the radius that have signed. The existing synagogue has approximately 45-member families. It was established in August of 2020. Presently, the applicant rents space at 144 Woodmere Boulevard. The space is not suitable for them anymore, and obviously they're looking to establish their new home at this location. The plan is that the existing dwelling will remain until the permanent building is built. It is presently occupied by a family. As far as the operations of the synagogue, essentially there's weekday morning prayers, evening study and prayers, and of course, the evening of Sabbath and the day of Sabbath. Sure. The weekdays are approximately 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m., at which they currently experience 10 to 15 attendees. Evening study, weekday evening study and prayers, 8 p.m. To 10:45 p.m., with approximately 15 to 20 attendees. On Friday nights and the night before religious holidays, the starting time varies, but it's generally 20 minutes before sundown, depending on the time of year, and those services last for approximately 1.5 hours. On the Sabbath, the hours are typically 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., and then a 3-hour late p.m. service beginning 2 hours before sundown. So that's generally the nature of the operation. At this time, unless the board has specific questions of me, I'll introduce Mr. Barry Nelson to testify regarding the special exception standards as set forth in the building zone ordinance.
Mr. Abertine, I just have a few quick housekeeping
Sure.
questions. If you covered them, I apologize. I was trying to do
No
it
worries.
else. So, the existing dwelling is at this time to be maintained.
Correct.
Is the idea it's forever maintained?
No, it's when the funds become available and the construction of the permanent building that is contemplated takes place, that house will be demolished.
Okay, and you probably said it, but how many trailers are we proposing right now? I just have the word trailers.
There are 4.
So they would want to use the 4 trailers and the dwelling now. And
Correct.
then what's the timeline? What's the anticipated time?
It's tough to tell. I'll let one of the representatives of the synagogue address that. It's, as you might imagine, a function of fundraising and the ability to actually pay for what's necessary. But they want to do it as quickly as possible.
So is your request today to keep to install the trailers and keep them there until they raise money, or is there a?
There's an ongoing, well, we don't have specific dates. I'll let the president of the shul address that. The idea being that the applicant is amenable to a structure as was done by the board in the decision that was handed in. Obviously, they would appreciate some flexibility in terms of extensions, depending upon conditions and their ability to move forward with the project. But the idea is that if the board were to approve this application, they will relocate their synagogue here, and they will immediately begin the planning and the plans preparation for submission to the building department to move that permanent approval process along. That is the plan.
Is the idea that the trailers will be 4 trailers all connected to the one
Yes.
structure?
Yes,
And that would be for the prayers, for their other worship events?
correct.
And
Is
how
it?
many people, what's the occupancy, if they had, everyone joined and wanted to join this synagogue, what would be, whether by the fire marshal or by the chairs or whatever?
Based upon the building department's public assembly analysis, there would be 121 authorized occupants. And that's what the parking calculation of 41 spaces is based upon.
Is that for the dwelling and the proposed trailers, both?
No, that's just for the trailers.
Did they, sorry, Mr.
No, it's, we're on the same chain.
Was the parking calculated for the they're wanting to use the dwelling at the, simultaneously, so to speak, right? They're not closing down the dwelling and using only the trailers.
Correct. The building department didn't assess any required parking for the single-family home.
Is the single-family home going to be maintained as a single-family home?
Yes, sir.
Oh, as a home, I
Yes.
apologize.
There's a family living in there presently, and they're going to remain. At least that's the plan.
Okay,
Your turn.
no, I pass. Go ahead, Mr. Acting.
Thank you. Unless there are further questions, I'll call Mr. Nelson to testify.
It's Barry Nelson, 220 Pettit Avenue, Belmont, New York, 11710. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Nelson. You've previously been qualified as an expert in real estate,
Yes,
and you've testified before this board on many occasions.
yes.
Have your qualifications changed since the last time you were qualified by this board?
No, sir.
Okay, then you're free to testify as a real estate expert, sir.
Thank you so much.
Real estate, qualified as an expert, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is Mr. Nelson is qualified to give his opinion as to real estate issues, property values, et cetera. Go
Thank you.
right ahead, Mr. Nelson.
I handed in some exhibits. You'll have a packet of photographs of the subject property and the surrounding area, which I'll describe shortly. In fact, the last several pictures would be the location and photographs of the case that Council mentioned on East Rockaway Avenue, the new or installed 4 trailers, which would be similar to what is proposed in this case at that location. It'll depict what is being proposed at this location. I also handed in some aerial views of the subject property and the surrounding use, a location map, and a partial copy of the official Town of Hempstead zoning map for that location. The area is a mixed-use area. It's generally at the northwest corner of Franklin Place and North Central Avenue. In the locale of Woodmere. Franklin Place runs generally northwest, southeast between Broadway, West Broadway, and Broadway. The area is mixed uses as far as the block, the entire block opposite the subject property, identified on your radius map, Section 39, Block 214, is a block front that runs on all 4 sides: Irving Place, North Central Avenue, Railroad Avenue, Franklin Place, business zoned. It's approximately just under 2 acres, and it has about 34,000 square feet of retail, a supermarket, dry cleaners, a restaurant opposite the subject property. It generally fronts to Railroad Avenue. The rear yard would be on North Central opposite the subject property, and the residences along North Central Avenue in the subject block. There's fencing. They have refuse at that location that's on the rear on North Central Avenue. The Long Island Railroad is approximately 1 block to the south, and you'll see it on your radius map. And if you continue further southeast on Franklin Place, you'll come into Central Avenue. Central Avenue is the leading corridor into downtown Cedarhurst and Lawrence, the incorporated villages. You'll find, if you look on the radius map, multiple zoning classifications. The block front opposite the subject property, entirely business zone. As you travel southwesterly on North Central Avenue, you'll have Residence B. Then you come into a substantial amount of business zoning, which will include office buildings, another synagogue, a parking lot, used cars at the southwest corner of North Central Avenue and Irving Place. Opposite the subject property on Franklin Place, generally is residential. You do have a corner, northeast corner in Block 210, Section 39, the corner of Franklin Place and Fulton Street being business zoned. And opposite the subject property at 224 and 220 Franklin Place, you have two three-story non-conforming uses, multifamily residences. On Franklin Place, as you traverse southeast, you'll find substantial amount of development being business-oriented and commercial uses. So you have the single-family homes in the subject block, you have some single-family homes as you go further north and northwest of the subject property, and then you have a substantial amount of commercial and commercial uses in the area. I investigated other similar uses like the subject property is being proposed to as synagogues, religious institutions, and you do have many of them in the area. In the block of Section 39, Block 219, there's a synagogue, and that would be off of North Central Avenue, just west of Irving Place. You have some uses along Irving Place to the south, as well as Franklin Place south of the railroad. I've included most of those uses in the my photographs. The request before the board is for the temporary use of trailers on the property, the subject property. And I've reviewed other synagogues in the area, as well as visiting the East Rockaway location for that recent grant. I testified on that application as well. It's my opinion that a religious use at this location complies with the standards of the ordinance, and that would be under Section 399-400 of the town, and I'll get into that shortly. Actually, why don't we just go right into it? And that is the special exception as far as Section 402. The board's very familiar with it. I can go through each one, A through D, and continue to the next, but it's my opinion, based on the character of the neighborhood, pattern of development, the uses of commercial, you have CA zoning as well, which I just noticed, and I was going to mention earlier, just near the railroad. You have business zoning, commercial, residential B, all working together in this community. That said, I reviewed the Nassau County Planning Commission Resolution Number 10,530-23, addressing those concerns. And one of them, which will be the first one, would be addressed by traffic engineer Sean Mulryan shortly. The next one, the proposed trailers are aesthetically displeasing and are out of character with the residential neighborhood. Also, the trailers result in a significant deviation from the standards of the zoning code in terms of lot coverage, front yard, side yard, and rear yard setbacks. This is a temporary situation until a synagogue is developed on the property, and it would remove one or the other as they go forward, the house as well as the temporary trailers. As far as displeasing, if the Planning Commission did visit the location, they happen to miss exactly what's opposite the subject property, and that would be the rear of the retail stores and the supermarket. That includes fencing, temporary trailers on there as far as storage and refuse at that location. I don't believe, and I provided photographs of the other location on East Rockaway, that it's a onerous type of use. It is a temporary use. The trailers are not screened from the adjacent residential properties. And again, there are some fencing, there's some shrubbery, but it's for a temporary situation. It's not going to be permanent, and they are green in nature as far as painting on the exterior, and I believe they are not substantially onerous to the surrounding community. As far as the setbacks, I provided photographs for the front yard setbacks. You have fences in there across the street, the fencing right up to the property lines on the retail use. During peak, trailers are not, okay. During peak usage times, the proposed trailers with maximum occupancy may result in a potential safety hazard with respect to ingress and egress. I don't believe they're totally clear on the understanding of this religious use. It's an Orthodox use. Their peak times, most of the people will not be driving to the location.
Are the trailers going to be used for Orthodox use?
Religious, yes. Yes.
I realize that. What Mr. Nelson just said, that they would be used for non-walkers, or walking people walking to? On the Sabbath, but not, and the trailers are going to be used 7 days a week, or one day being the Sabbath, whereby
Yes, but the,
congregants would walk on that one day?
well, it's typically the Friday evening.
Yes.
And Saturday,
Okay.
people would walk.
Yes, I
Right,
understand.
I understood, Mr., I know you've heard many of these.
Yes.
The non-Sabbath days.
Yes.
There will be, some will walk because they're within walking distance, others will drive. And Mr. Mulryan will cover the parking availability in a few moments. But there is more than ample parking for those who will be driving in those occurrences. And that's the basis for the parking waiver request that we're making.
And then another related question, thank you. Why can't they use the house in place of the trailers while they fundraise?
I don't believe that the house is suitable to accommodate it. I think maybe the project architect is here, and he might be able to address that particular question better than I can. So if I can defer that for a few minutes, we'll get that answer for you, Mr.
Okay.
Pellegrini.
Yes, thank you.
Also, just in something to follow up on Mr. Nelson's analysis of the Planning Commission objections relating to the last objection, which states, during peak usage times, the proposed trailers with maximum occupancy may result in potential safety hazard with respect to ingress and egress. It's not clear from what they're saying whether they're speaking about a parking and traffic situation or a occupancy of the individuals in the space. So I'll address both. These trailers, under the town requirements, qualify as a place of public assembly. So they must meet all town, county, and state requirements for public assembly usage in terms of emergency lighting, exit lighting, fire suppression, and distances between seating areas and egress points. So that is a given. So to suggest that somehow, because these are temporary units, that they will be unsafe is not accurate. Just the opposite.
I agree with that analysis.
And as far as the vehicular, if it was speaking to vehicular, there's no vehicular access to the property contemplated by virtue of the application before the board. So it's really a parking issue in terms of vehicular access.
The dwelling, is that used for any type of religious service at this point?
Not to my knowledge, no. It's just a residence
And your
for,
client's acknowledging no?
no.
Okay.
Jay, it's a residential, it's a family residing there pursuant to a rental agreement.
Thank you.
And unless the board has questions of Mr. Nelson or of myself at this point, I would introduce Sean Mulryan to testify regarding the parking waiver request.
Mr. Mulryan, you've previously been qualified as a parking and traffic expert before this board, is that correct?
That's correct.
On many occasions.
Yes.
Have any of your qualifications changed since the last time you testified before this board?
Just a few weeks older, that's all.
Okay, then. That's a negative qualification. So that we will again qualify you as a traffic and parking expert, and you are now free to testify as such.
Thank you very much. Once again, for the record, Sean Mulryan, Mulryan Engineering, 1225 Franklin Avenue in Garden City, New York. Good afternoon. We have prepared, as part of this application, a parking traffic study for the subject site. Again, the site requires 41 parking spaces where none are provided. As we have mentioned, this is an Orthodox synagogue which is being proposed. A number of the congregants are here today to observe the proceedings and to participate and show their support. This synagogue is requesting permission to put up 4 temporary trailers, during which time they'd be looking to raise monies to build a permanent structure on the same site. This board has heard similar applications. The decisions from those applications have been submitted to the board. One of the things that is unique from this application is the subject site happens to be located near municipal parking, where other sites with similar religious uses were not. So on the aerial photograph to my right and to your left, there is a depiction of the subject site highlighted in yellow. To the south and to the west of the subject site, there is overflow parking for the Long Island Railroad, which is approximately 1 to 2 blocks from the subject site and a short walking distance. Again, the premise of the synagogue is Orthodox Jewish, where the congregants do not walk to the main services on Sunday. Do not drive to do not drive to services on Saturday, which is the main service that's provided. They do drive to morning prayer and evening prayer during the week. We looked at times that would just be associated with, not a problem. We did look at the parking surrounding the subject site during the times when the site would be active, and we found that there was ample parking. Again, there's parking on the street, and there is additional municipal parking within a short walking distance from the subject site. The findings of our analysis are provided in the report that was prepared and submitted today. It was also submitted earlier electronically to the town. One. There is municipal parking on both sides, so there is municipal parking on what's labeled on this, is Station Plaza, but also Railroad. There is street municipal, and then there is a standalone municipal lot on the south side of the railroad track. Correct. So to the southwest, there is municipal parking along the street, and there is a municipal parking field on the south side of the railroad tracks.
And then, I think it was 6:30 to 8. In your research, did you determine that?
That's all right.
That by 6:30, a lot of spots are taken when I used to ride the train? So what percentage of those spots will be available in the weekdays? Or, I'm sure you did the counts.
So,
Mr. Moran?
yes.
Christine, can you hear out there with the fans? Would you,
Stephanie?
Stephanie, I'm sorry.
Shut the fans.
Are you able to hear sufficiently to take down?
We can't even hear you.
All right, let's,
Cut that fan.
yeah,
Patrick.
whatever we have to do, we have to do. Everyone take off your jackets and we cut the fans.
We can go outside. We can go outside and kill ourselves.
It's,
I will do my best to speak loud and clear
okay.
and slowly. How about that?
That
And
would work.
Stephanie, if you still can't, we'll get rid of some of the fans because that's more important.
Well, some of the people
ahead.
testifying.
So the question that was asked concerned the larger municipal parking lot, again, to the southwest is the subject site, which has 105 parking spaces. On average, between 6:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m., there was average of 67 available parking spaces in that lot. The street parking that, again, is on the north side of the railroad tracks has 52 parking spaces. We observed an average of 19 spaces available, again, during the 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. time period.
Which table are you reading from? Table 1?
Table 1 is the morning observations that were taken. Again, they include not only the municipal lot, but also the on-street parking that's provided surrounding the subject site. In the evening, between 7:30 and 9:30, corresponding to evening prayers, the municipal parking lot with 105 parking spaces had an average of 88 parking spaces available. And those were taken on Tuesday, May 23rd. We once again looked at it on Wednesday, May 24th. In the morning, out of 105 parking spaces in the municipal lot, 73 were available on average. And in the evening, once again, on Wednesday, May 24th, of the 105, 89 were available. That is in addition to the on-street parking that is also surrounding the subject site, just to provide the total available parking out of 270 parking spaces that surround the subject site within close walking distance. During the morning of Tuesday, May 23rd, 158 parking spaces were available. On the evening of May 23rd, which again was a Tuesday, out of 270 parking spaces, 207 were available. On Wednesday, May 24th, during the morning peak hours, there was 162 parking spaces available surrounding the subject site. And in the evening, between 7:30 and 9:30, there was 197, again, available within short walking distance of the subject site. We do not anticipate that we would have anywhere near the demand to meet or come anywhere close to that capacity. The morning prayers and evening prayers are generally attended by a handful of congregants that come to meet. They meet essentially in the morning. The times vary. In the evening, the times also vary depending on sunrise and sunset on that particular day. These are times that are offset somewhat from the peak of the stores and other things that are around in the area. You mentioned the train parking. This is an off-site or satellite off parking to the main facilities, which are further to the east. We also looked at the response that was Resolution 10530-23 from the Nassau County Department of Public Works, which again talks about the peak parking demand related to the occupancy of the trailers. The occupancy, once again, is what determines the number of parking spaces. We have an occupancy within the trailers of 121 persons. That results in a parking requirement of 41 parking spaces. However, during the times when the facility would be most active is when the members walk to services. So the spillover parking essentially is not an issue related to the peak demand of the facility. The demand for parking in the subject site would be limited, again, to a small group of individuals that would show up in the morning and in the evening, before and after work, related to the sunrise and sunset on the particular day. During occasions when the congregants are permitted to drive to the facility, we believe that the municipal parking and the on-street parking surrounding the subject site will be more than adequate to handle the associated demand with the proposed temporary trailers that are the subject of this application. If there are any questions from the board, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
Unless the board has further questions at this point, I'd like to introduce the applicant's president to address the board.
Right ahead.
Mr. Avatine, is there going to propose landscaping to kind of shield the trailers?
We can put, as I indicated earlier, since we can move the trailers, we can expand that 5-foot side yard to the west. We can expand that to 7 feet. There is room for landscaping there, although the neighbor on that side did indicate to the applicant that they would prefer not to have landscaping in that area. And
Wait, I'm sorry, which neighbor was that? There's
That-
two property lines, Chair.
It's the one directly to the west, 1020 North Central.
Where's the key?
Here's the
Yes, I
direction of,
understand. That resident is here, I believe. I don't know whether the gentleman plans to address the board, but he is
The
here.
one where there's a 4-foot fence, because I was thinking the same thing, like some sort of living fence, but that's the one.
We certainly can do that, and again, it'll be the board's decision in the event the application's approved, whether to put landscaping there. I don't, what I'm told is that the resident there did not wish us to do that, but you can hear from him directly in that regard.
One other question, sort of related, because the chairman and I were speaking about earlier. The other property line, the longer one, to, I guess,
Yes.
which be the northern property line. It's unclear from the diagram, is the fence on the property line or not?
The fence appears to be on the property line. It's a 6-foot fence, and there's a driveway the driveway on the adjoining property abuts the fence.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Albertine?
Yes.
With respect to the one-family house,
Yes,
it's rented
yes.
to a parishioner
No, to an unrelated family.
and one family?
Yes.
Because we've seen in an article saying that there's rental for an apartment and a one-family and another family.
To my knowledge, it's a one family being
One
utilized as a
family
one
only?
family, yes.
No apartment for rent?
That's what that's what I understand. I can't speak for as a
Who would
certainty.
know?
Excuse me?
Who would know?
Well, the president will know. He's,
I'd like to hear from him.
of course.
So just as you suggested, Mr. Albertine?
Yes. Isaac, what's wrong? Come on up. No, you're going to put your name on the record.
Answers, just simple question, and then Mr. Abertine is. Yeah, oh, he was, I didn't realize.
My name is Yitzhak Fried. My address is 943 Northfield Road.
I have a question about the
Yeah.
one-family house. Is it rented?
It is rented.
Oh, okay. And it's rented to one family
It's
only?
rented to, it's a family of cousins. They're on the first floor and second floor. I think they may be living separately. There's an entrance in the back and an entrance in the front.
How many
But they're all
kitchens are
related.
Excuse me, how many
There's
kitchens?
currently 2 kitchens. You can remove it. I thought the plan was No, we bought this property, and that was the state it was in. We bought the property a year ago.
You now own
We-
the property.
Yeah, we own the property.
Okay, so it's supposed to be a one-family house with one kitchen.
Our intent is to change that, to make it, to remove the second kitchen.
There's a non-conforming application filed, which I understand is going to remedy any inconsistencies or any improprieties in the dwelling itself, and that's in the building department. The architect who is handling that is here as well and can
So the
address that.
kitchen will be removed?
It will.
What about the apartment? Is there an apartment?
It's not, once the kitchen's removed, it's a second floor of a house. There's 3 bedrooms up there. Well, it'll be 2 bedrooms once we remove the extension.
And what time period will that be done?
As soon as it's approved by the DOB and we knock down the back wall, we're going to remove the kitchen.
Yeah, there's a portion of the house that's going to be demolished as part of this application.
Oh, the portion to the...
Correct. You can see it, it's identified, there's a wood deck there, and then there's a portion, second floor overhang to be removed, if you can see it on the drawing. Just wait then.
If I could add one thing, ma'am, this house has been there for 25 years. We inherited it like this, thinking it was a 2-family, until our architect filed plans and got an objection, which was a few months ago, that it's a 1-family dwelling, which we then immediately went and filed to make it from non-conforming use to conforming use. We had no idea. So a previous very nice lady in the community owned this thing for 25 years, and I think she's been operating it like that. Once we discovered that it was a non-conforming use, we filed plans as part of this application to rectify that and make it conforming use to a one-family.
It is the non-conforming. You have a copy of the non-conforming, Mr. Abertine?
No, I don't.
They granted the non-conforming as a one-family dwelling
Correct.
only.
That I'm aware of.
Okay. Obtain a building permit for interior alterations on the first floor, second floor. Obtain a building permit for the rear deck and one-story addition. Obtain a building permit for the decking, fencing. Obtain a building permit for interior alterations to the first floor bathroom. Obtain a building permit for second floor laundry room and the second floor laundry room, and second water heater. Obtain a building permit from oil to gas conversion. Obtain a certificate, electrical certificate, and then an area inspection. There's nothing in here that says that it's a two-family or ever was.
I'll let the architect is here. Please give your name and address.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Shmuel Flaum, 194 Wanzer Avenue, Inwood, New York, 11096. So I am the applicant on the proposed trailer use. As we filed it, there was no record of the existing house in the town of Hempstead. We filed a non-conforming application to legalize it. The plan examiner who I met with, we went through the objections. The people who sold the property to the current owners, the synagogue, had an illegal tenant renting. It has to be rectified. There are tenant laws, so they have to get them out. So I think they're waiting for their lease to expire so they don't renew it, at which point they'll be able to rectify all the issues that were approved in the non-conforming. So they have to get the people out. Part of the issue is they also need to demolish part of the building that the people who are upstairs are living in. So part of this application is once they get the approval, and I believe you said they're coming up on the limitation on their lease, it should be expiring soon, then they're going to
When?
get, do you know when that is? What, in the summer? I believe we can get that information for the board to make the decision, but basically, once the tenant's lease is up,
How many, let me ask, okay, I get what you said. How many, you've been in the house?
yes,
How many kitchens are in there now?
currently
Now?
there are 2 kitchens, one on the first floor, one on the second floor. The second floor is proposed to be removed in whole, and it'll be 1 kitchen and 1 tenant.
What's in the basement?
Crawl space, there's like storage and mechanical equipment, there's nothing in there other than that.
Are there rooms that are rented?
There is currently, I think, there was a bedroom down there,
You know-
but I don't think it's a separate rental because there's no kitchen down there.
Can I just ask, Mr. Bellarmine, can I just ask? Absolutely. So wait, so there are 2 living units in the structure. You're taking clearly steps to address that. And I missed the part about something about the lease is up and how you get people out. What is, explain it again?
Okay, so they have a non-conforming with conditions. In order,
Non-conforming what?
they have a non-conforming approval for the way the house is supposed to be as a one-family.
One family.
So they have to pull a permit to do the work, to rectify and remedy everything. In order to do that, they have to get the people who are living there out to rectify it. So
Not
one,
both or one of them?
definitely,
get them
definitely
out.
the one upstairs,
Okay.
they have to get out because that's where the majority of the work is taking place. Downstairs, I think it's one wall that has to be removed, and that's it, and just patched. So it's primarily the second floor, all that has to be remedied. Second to that, when they file to do when they finally get the permit for the trailers, there's gonna be another filing because they have to cut off and remove a piece of the second floor altogether because it's in the way.
In the way of the trailer, I guess?
Exactly, it's in the way of the trailer location. So there's going to be a filing filed to do that demolition, because that's separate from the non-conforming that was approved.
Right, but what is the plan for getting the other family out of the house?
So
I
really,
missed
the
that.
plan is, and this is actually addressed Mr. Pellegrini's other comment, so I don't know if he wants to hear this.
Joe, he's addressing the issue of how we get the people out to,
So one of the things that you brought up earlier that I wanted to answer is that the reason why the trailers are proposed on that side of the property versus using the house as a synagogue is the intention is to build a new synagogue. And by putting the trailers on that side of the property, they'll be able to demolish that house and build a new synagogue. So I think the real intention is to get everyone out of this house as soon as possible, because once they take possession and move the synagogue there, they'll have a basis to raise the funds to propose a new permanent building. But the current structure as is, that single-family house that's being used as a two-family, is not consistent with code regulations for synagogue use, and the amount of money they'd spent to,
Consistent with Town of Hempstead Building Department either.
granted, but they inherited it from the previous owner. They didn't create the situation.
Can I just go back to, when are we getting that one group out?
As soon as they can,
When
again,
is that? Like, do we have a lease? No, I mean, what is?
can you get a
Like,
copy
I
of the
don't know if
lease?
they're holdovers or what?
Can you get a copy of the lease? Get a copy of the lease, like now. Here, Howard.
I mean, are they Mr. Abertine, are they holdovers or?
I'm not familiar with their rental status at all. I haven't seen the lease, I don't know. So
I mean, I feel like that's a big part of this analysis in terms of when,
well, clearly they want to rectify the situation as soon as they can.
right, but
The-
if they have a 2-year lease and we're talking about a potential grant with time constraints on it, then you can't file, you can't build a new, you can't tear that house down and build a new structure if people have the right to stay in, you know what I? 'Cause
Yes.
Again, we're talking about putting the permanent structure where this structure is.
Understood. Okay, I'm not an architect, but I put it, one of the first floor, I'm almost positive expired. I will get the information, I believe they're month to month, the first floor, I believe.
Okay.
The second floor, I believe, it's certainly not a 2-year lease. At the latest, it would be July or August of this year. And I put in language, knowing that with 60 days' notice, they have to vacate, even during the term of the lease.
So we're confident here that by July or August.
Correct.
It's possible to empty the house.
100%.
And move forward.
That's totally erroneous. If the lease expires in July or August, you're not going to get that tenant out for an extended period of time, all
Well,
right?
it's a free, I mean.
You'll make them a holdover, they'll be there for God knows how long,
Don't
depending
give them
on the
any
courts.
ideas,
No, I'm just telling it
I
like
don't-
it is. I've done landlord-tenant work
understand.
for 49 years.
I agree
You're
with
not
you,
going to
but
wave the magic wand and get those tenants out. That's not going to happen.
in a free market apartment in Nassau County, maybe I'm not talking about a rent-stabilized apartment in the Bronx, I don't think it takes very long for a holdover, non-renewal lease to get a tenant out who doesn't have a lot of young kids.
Yeah, you should be so lucky. Okay.
Okay, so,
We'll
so,
move on from there.
so my question, you're the president, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For these purposes,
Yes.
anyway. So my question is it the intent, so I know we don't know the exact timeline of the money raising and all that, but is the plan right now that you, in fact, get the people out of it as soon as you can, regardless of how the money raising is filling up?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's
And-
talk about the timeline
Yeah.
for the money raising.
Okay.
How much money do you expect that you have to raise in order to build the permanent building?
Or at least start.
Forget the starting, how long it took to build it.
How much money? I would say around $3 million.
And how much have you raised thus far?
We we only did a raise for the purchase. In a span of a few weeks, we raised $600,000.
Great.
So we didn't go out to fundraise yet, but there's a lot of well-heeled individuals who are a fan of this project, and I believe we'd be able to raise the funds, as well as a construction loan. There's a lot of community members with connections to banks, so it does happen.
So I don't know if this is for Mr. Abertine or for you. But I know, Mr. Abertine, you've read our prior decision on the temporary trailers.
Yes.
Rockaway. And I know that because you also submitted it, right? So in reading through that, does that basic framework fit your request? And because there have to be deadlines. It's not like, oh yeah, keep them there forever. So, or to what extent does your needs or your request deviate from that? Like, you don't have to go into everything, but just generally speaking, you see how we set up the 1 years and the various conditions to, if you need another year, make that request within a certain time frame?
I think that this general framework that's set forth here, I believe, the way it's set up was that the board essentially wanted a renewal after 1 year to be applied for, and a status update provided as to where things stood. That's certainly an acceptable time frame. And then, after the second 1-year extension, this states that that would be the last one. We would prefer that not to be the case if the board were inclined to approve. We'd like the opportunity to come back and ask for additional time if we can.
Would you envision that being, hey, by the way, it's been 2 years, we just haven't raised enough money, or it's been 2 years and we got this much and we really are on the precipice?
Well, that's the point. I think that this board would want to know when the applicant would be coming back for extensions, that a good faith, real effort has been made and a full accounting and report of what's transpired be provided to the board. If it's disingenuous and doesn't sound right and doesn't appear that the applicant is really attempting, then the board might not be inclined to grant a further extension. But that's not, the intention is to get this done. Obviously, from the applicant's perspective, we'd like a long period of time, whatever it
Wouldn't we
takes,
all?
and we can keep these trailers there indefinitely until we raise the money. In reading this decision, and I explained this to the applicant, that was not a likely scenario.
Right,
So,
because, again, it's supposed to be temporary.
of course.
So the other thing that occurs to me is that, as you know, because you've been doing this longer than I have, using a parking variance as an example, if you run a retail place and you get a 5-car parking variance and things change and you come back, you kind of get this credit for the 5-spot parking variance, right? I'm only one, but it seems to me if we're inclined to grant this 45% lot area occupied with this residential structure and these 4 trailers, that I'm inclined to vote for a grant that at the cessation of that grant, that it would be a de novo analysis. And I think that's not going to be a problem for you, because if the house is getting torn down and you're going to be on less, you're going to need less lot area occupied. Like if you tore down the house and put the 4 trailers, you're not going to do that. But I'm just saying the lot area occupied is much less than it is proposed now. So I'm assuming that you're following me, right?
Of course.
I think that these new temporary ideas, I mean, part of me feels like it's a little oxymoronic, because we are here to deal with permanent structures, but okay, so we're dealing with temporary structures. I just think that whatever we do in granting this relief temporarily, and again, I'm one of whoever we have here, and council advises us, so he knows better than I, that at the end of the day, we would want to take a look at this de novo as to the permanent proposal.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
there would be no other proper approach, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I think that it's a clean slate, essentially.
Thank you.
The trailers will be gone. We're going to be coming in with a brand-new building on a vacant piece of land, and the building is going to be designed in a way that coordinates with the size of the property and tries to maximize setbacks and such. And so this situation was dictated by the fact that the house is there and that there are people living in it. So the architect was challenged with utilizing the available space to accommodate the temporary trailers as it exists. But with a vacant piece of property, clearly a different scenario, and that way he'll be able to design what suits the property and suits the congregation.
Do you and/or President, whomever wants to speak, do you anticipate that as soon as the residential dwelling is vacated, even if the funds haven't been raised to start the project, the permanent structure for the synagogue, that there would be a move toward demolishing it in preparation for what comes?
I think that will come, I think the plan is, as Mr. Shmuel indicated, Mr. Flom, excuse me, indicated.
We know him.
Yes, as he indicated, the portion of the home is going to be demolished as part of this application. Once the folks upstairs vacate, I believe the intention would be to keep the existing family there if they so chose to stay for a period of time until such time as we were actually prepared to remove the trailers and demolish the building.
So
But-
first family gets out, demolish that little piece,
Right.
and then keep it there, I guess, makes sense to get some rent out of it.
That's the idea. Do you want to address that?
Can I just
Yes.
speak to you for a moment?
One at a time.
First of all, you definitely have to have a microphone, and I don't know if Mr. Averteen's allocating one to you right now.
How about one
But
at a
with
time?
these fans, we have to have a microphone.
No, as logic would dictate it, seeing as that they're trying to raise funds and it's a religious entity, they would prefer to have that revenue coming in for as long as possible, rather than vacate and take the house down right away, if they can.
You've been anointed by Mr. Averteen to speak.
Just in general, as per your conversation before, whether or not I'm the applicant on the new building, they're going to have to come before the board with a new application for a brand-new synagogue to be granted because it's non-conforming with the residential zoning. So at that time, the board, hopefully will hear an update as to the demolition of the structure of the house. But they're going to probably have to do some site prep work to figure out certain things that the board will need to make a decision for that, such as structural support, borings and soil and whatnot. So I think the anticipation, as soon as they can get rid of the people and they don't need the income, they're getting them out of there.
And do we think that once the residential structure is gone and we create a permanent structure that basically provides for at least the same amount of occupancy as the trailers did, are we going to try and put some parking on the land? Not that it matters because we'll analyze that at the time, but are we thinking we can at least put some spots or?
I think the intention is the building should go where the current house is, plus a larger footprint, and then once that's completed, demolish the trailers and make that the parking area, because you're not going to put a building there where the trailers are. So you build the new building, and then you demolish the trailers or remove them,
So
and
you don't have a gap in
accommodate the parking
services.
there.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Averteen,
Yes, sir.
would you like to proceed?
I'm sorry, I could not.
Would you like to proceed, or have you
Yeah.
concluded your?
There's some folks
presentation?
from the congregation who would like to address the board at this time.
Okay.
Mrs. Nina Fisher, who's a neighbor, direct neighbor to the site, would like to say a few words.
Yes, sir.
Reading the request, special exception for accessory use, accessory to religious use, parenthesis, existing dwelling.
Yes.
So you're indicating, maybe I'm reading it wrong, that the existing dwelling is going to be,
I know that's how it sounds. We consulted with the plan examiner, he said that's how he had to deny it, notwithstanding the fact that it was going to be used for
it's a
home.
non-religious use, nothing,
It's
it's under religious use property.
it's not being used for but it is accessory to the religious use. But that's how they denied it, knowing and
He said he couldn't change the language. We spoke with the plan examiner about the language because it was brought up by the BZA personnel who handle the file work, and they specifically addressed this issue. He said that is the language they had to use. I forgot who handled the case, but it was one of the BZA, whoever handled it, she brought it to our attention and we dealt with it. Is it Mary Ann?
It was Mary Ann.
I think Mary Ann brought it to my attention. I went to the plan examiner, who discussed it with Fred, and then I think it was Joan Arabecki, who was so we did what we were asked, and we were told this is what it has to say.
Okay.
The point is, Mr. Pellegrini, we did have the same question, and that was how it was answered to us.
Great minds.
I'm Nina Fisher. I live directly across the street at 1040 Fulton Street. I wanted to say personally that I feel very enthusiastic about the congregation moving to the location that they're asking for. And I think that it would be a very positive presence in the area. There's, as was mentioned before, a lot of different things in the area, including the liquor store, there's an urgent care, and I think that the congregation would be like a really nice presence. I have a bunch of kids. I think that it's a nice thing. And I also wanted to say that I personally went to all of my neighbors on Fulton Street that were all very close with each other, and they're all different faiths, and they're all different age brackets. And I asked them how they felt about it. They're not all here. Some of them did sign the petition. Not everyone was able to, but nobody opposed it. We have people on the block that are veterans, that are volunteer firefighters. All the people, the two houses to the left of me and the two in front of me are there for decades and decades. They're all very optimistic. Everyone feels that it would be a tremendous value to the neighborhood and to our property value, and it seems like a lot of enthusiasm in the very immediate area.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Eric Orlovsky. I'm the owner of 220 and 224 Franklin Place. That's right across the street. And I think that this would be an asset to my property. Between the renters that would be adding to the property to go to synagogue across the street, I think it enhances the overall area for myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
As close as I can get. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, the audience as well. I guess I could say we're all sweating in here together. My name is Rabbi Eli Beagleisen, 979 Benton Street in Woodmere, here in the town of Hempstead. I'm a community rabbi. I'm active in several community organizations, and I guess most relevant, a member and a regular attendee at the davening, at the prayer services in this synagogue. If I may posit, this is a relatively young congregation. You can see a small sampling of the active membership here, a young and a growing congregation, a mix of local residents, educators, business people, lawyers, doctors, and if I may say about myself as well, generally good people. The kind of folks that are a pleasure to have living next door, the kind of people that maintain their own homes and are living in the town of Hempstead and Woodmere in order to be living in a pleasant, quiet, clean, and green suburban town. About this particular community request, the community's request, I should say, for this variance, I just want to make a quick note or two that relates to some of the questions brought up. This congregation was formed just a few short years ago, 3 or 2, something like that, to be exact. It didn't take long for them to realize that they need a proper building, and the unofficial president who occupied this chair just a little bit ago, Mr. Fried, Mr. Yitzi Fried, got on the case, and I should say he raised the money rather expeditiously, and they purchased this property, raising over $600,000 in actual hard donations in a very short amount of time, purchased this property. I have no doubt that if that's the same is going to be the case, as soon as this building's erected, he already has the plans to raise the money for a proper, beautiful, and a permanent structure on the place. I would say if we look at it, as he mentioned, it's about $3 million for the permanent structure. And if I may say, having been in the fundraising field for the past 10 years, personally raised over $10 million in the past 2 years, we're looking at a $3 million building. It's about $1 million in raised donations, about $2 million in mortgages. And I'll mention, though he might kill me after, Mr. Fried, the unofficial president of the shul, besides being quite a talented fundraiser, He also is in finance, and I'm sure he's going to make sure that they do get a mortgage for the remaining $2 million and have a plan to pay that off. That being said, us members of the congregation do know that it's either you're going to give your maximum and make sure that a proper building gets put up, or you're going to get lots of emojis and texts and constant reminders from Yitzi until you do your best and get all your families and friends to donate as well. So I would be fairly confident in that. And on that note, I would say he does call himself the unofficial president. We consider him the president, as you see. He is the leader of the congregation, but he can call himself unofficial as long as he remains the largest donor. So thanks, buddy, for that. I'll also note some of the neighbors of the particular property. I guess that was a solicitation in public. I will also note some of the neighbors of the property includes one of the immediate neighbors is actually the treasurer, who is obviously very supportive of this, and he's also excited to make sure there's no funds being lost, that the lights are turned off at night, and all those kind of things. Another one of the immediate neighbors of this property directly across the street is one of the leaders, I believe the official co-chair lady of the Women's Club, who are very excited and very close with a lot of the neighbors and going to make sure that any greenery or anything like that is put in place. Just want to address briefly as far as the question with the tenants, just again, that was something the congregation was unaware of when they purchased the property, that it was being used, it was presented and literally purchased as if it was a two-family home, and as Mr. Flom said, they found that after it wasn't. They're dealing with that, and I would mention that they're actually both present in this room right now, and I'll call them out without even asking them. First, we have over here Mr. Waldman, who is a real estate investor who has plenty of experience. As the chairman mentioned before, it could be quite difficult sometimes, even when a lease is over, to get someone to leave. Mr. Woolman has had that experience many times, as well as Mr. Bosco, who is another member of the congregation and an attorney. The two of them have already begun to research how to do that, and as a congregation, they would love it, the legal part of the, any tenants, at least one family, to remain as long as possible. We want that income until we're ready to demolish and build, which Mr. Flom is going to hopefully make plans for that new building as soon as possible. But when it does come the time and to deal with any extra tenants or whatever else is discovered, I think I would personally be pretty confident in those two professionals in being able to accomplish that. Last but not least, I obviously propose that this request should be approved, hopefully, and I thank you for being here on your time, and we hope to be meeting with the appropriate committee rather soon, hopefully towards even the end of this summer, to begin discussing or the application process for a permanent building. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Bochco. I'm a congregant at the synagogue. I'm an attorney at Hunt & Andrews Kurth in the city. I'm an intellectual property attorney. I'm not a real estate attorney. I have some concept of real estate. Most importantly, I'm a longtime Woodmere resident. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my wife. We raise our 4 children in Woodmere. In addition, my wife herself grew up in Woodmere. I can see my in-laws' home from my house. Oddly enough, I have 2 brother-in-laws who are even closer in distance to my in-laws. But her grandmother lives there. We have 4 generations who live in Woodmere. It's a town that's incredibly important to us, and I'm going to be respectful to the other attendees of the hearing who may wish to speak or have other matters before the board, so I'll keep my statements very short. But I would like to point out to the board that the congregation, as it sought a property in Woodmere, really kept in mind to be good neighbors. If the board is familiar with the Woodmere area, it's a very small business district. There is essentially Broadway, which is a 2-lane street, but very narrow and very overcrowded. There isn't much, by the way, of available non-residential area. We selected a property that's across from probably the largest shopping center in Woodmere. It abuts also, it's next to, I believe, a liquor store. There are some medical suites and offices down the block, in addition to some of the residential homes that are on the other side. It is the most suitable property that we could possibly find, and which frankly is available in Woodmere, which is walking distance and available so congregants and their children can safely go to synagogue. and it's respectful and mindful of our neighbors, which is very, very important to us. In terms of the ability to fundraise, it is our full expectation to build the synagogue very soon and shortly. Obviously, we need to fundraise to do that, but as my fellow congregant mentioned, we raised $600,000 in 2 weeks just a year ago. We have some members who are, like myself, very professionally employed in successful businesses, and it's our full intention to build a synagogue which is modest and respectful to the community and to the benefit of the greater community as well. If the panel has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I will release my time. Thank you.
Good. Next.
My name is Eli Waldman. I'm not sure how wise it is to speak after a professional rabbi and a lawyer, but I'll be brief and from the heart. A few weeks short of 40 years ago, I was born in Woodmere on Midway. I grew up on Lehigh Lane in Woodmere. I raised my family now on Midwood Road in Woodmere. My wife grew up just a few miles away in West Hempstead. She's attended school over here in Uniondale and has been teaching in the school in Uniondale for the past 17 years or so. As Jeremy, Mr. Bochco said, Woodmere is very important to my family. My parents live there. I'll one up Mr. Bochco. I have 3 brothers-in-law within spitting distance of me. It's an incredibly important place to my family, and it's within our intention that the community thrives and grows and continues to become more beautiful as it has over the last 4 decades I've been a part of it. As you can see from almost half of the congregants in the community, part of the synagogue, came in the middle of a workday to attend and sweat it out here in order to show how important this is to us. It's an incredibly important part of our lives. It's important to us. It's important to our spouses. It's incredibly important to our children. And the synagogue is a focal point of our lives. And as was expressed, in our current setting, we really cannot continue to thrive and grow and also offer all the amenities and the benefits of the congregation to others who want to join. So I appreciate your attention and considering the matter, and I sincerely hope that you approve the application. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next. No one else?
No one else, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation, Mr. Avatine?
It does.
Good. Any opposition? Thought there were. Okay. They spoke, did they not? Did they not? Mr. Fine, you already addressed, did you already address the board?
No, sir.
Okay, come up.
Have you been sworn in?
Will be.
There you go.
Yes, I will. Good afternoon, panel. My name is Reverend Winton Fine. I am a clergyman for the last 40 years. I have been living in Woodmere for the past 32 years and would be the closest neighbor to the synagogue where I presently live with my wife and 1 child for the last 27 years. This is a very civil conversation we are having, and so while I may not be in total opposition to the synagogue, there are concerns. And let me just point out what these concerns are. I live at 1020 North Central Avenue, diagonally across the street from the proposed synagogue. Across the street from me is the Gourmet Glut supermarket. A half a block up is the New York Sports Club, which is now a high school. And across from Franklin Avenue is a floral business that has been there, a family business, for a number of years. Needless to say, the only time my kids can come and have peace to park on North Central Avenue is a very short block, is on Saturday, which is a Sabbath, because nobody drives. The workers from the supermarket choose to park on North Central Avenue and not in the parking lot occupied by Gourmet Gluck supermarket. I've gone there time after time after time to say to them,
You know, we're all citizens. Let's have peace. Do it half and half. The only time, again, I say there's peace is on a Saturday, because they park there from Monday till Friday, 12 o'clock, when the supermarket closes. And that's the only time you have space on the avenue itself. The two municipal parking lots that has been alluded to is one occupied by Woodmere subway station and the other one by Hewlett. These parking lots are completely filled every single day because persons park to go to the city in these lots. So I hear about being vacant. Again, the only day that these lots are vacant is on Saturday because people work from Monday to Friday. So when you think, I do understand real estate because I'm a pastor, but I'm a realtor. It's a commercial zone, or a mixed zone, so you have a number of things going on in there. But in my opinion, quality of life matters. I'm from Jamaica. Doesn't matter where you're from. Quality of life matters. I live there. My wife lives there. My kids come and go. I have one that lives there. So my emotion is about quality of life. I said to the gentleman, he's here, and we have had several conversations, that if you're going to put something like what I hear temporary, it should be set back at least 8 feet from my kitchen, because my kitchen faces the side of that house. And so we have had dialogues and conversation on it. That house is populated by quite a few people. I think at least 7 or 8 live in there. So I am not decrying that. I'm not decrying where persons live, but I'm just simply having a conversation based on how I feel and what I see. I think if, again, I'm a pastor. I pastor a church in Crown Heights, a very large church, over 700 persons. And we have, and Crown Heights is a very combustible area, so I do understand the dynamics of pastoring a church beside a post office with not much parking. So those dynamics I understand by virtue of my career. I'm a theologian, I'm not a lawyer. So I think if I look at this reasonably, and you were to take down that house, you could offset the synagogue more so on Franklin and not in my backyard with the temporary stuff that's being talked about. And I say this in all honesty and fairness because I know that I'm going to be miserable, because church or synagogue comes not only with adults but with children. What do you do on the day when you're having your synagogue worship and the children are outside running up and down, playing ball and all that stuff? I refuse to be angry and to be upset at that stage. And so I want us to have the conversation. I am only one, I'm in the minority among this group, but I think that America gives all of us a voice. And while I am saying it should not be there, I think within reason, we should really think of all the dynamics involved, because North Central Avenue is on a very short street. You have a supermarket, you have a high school, you have a place where floral arrangement is being sold, so they're crowding and parking and all of this kinds of stuff. We know that on Saturday, the folks who go to Shabbat, I have friends, I run with them in Woodmere, very, very close Jewish friends. I could tell you they're very highly professional people. They're not driving. But on the other days when you have to come early for a prayer meeting like we do, and you have to come for this and you have to come for that, there's going to be driving. 1 block across the street from North Central Avenue is another synagogue. So as soon as you cross over Franklin, there's another one. So there are 5 of them surrounding that little geographical area. I am saying if you have 5 and you're going to add 1 more, and with the parking constraint that I see, I don't want to come here and act naive and act stupid and act friendly and then become angry and frustrated afterwards. And I will tell everybody, the earth is the Lord, the fullness thereof, the earth that dwell thereon. I am not running from where I live because somebody else is going to make me uncomfortable. I've been there for 29 years. I lived in the area for 32 years. And this is going to be my home. And after I pass, and whatever happens, my kids and my grandkids will occupy that space. It will never be sold. and I'm just stating that point today. So this is my concern, and this is where I'm raising my voice. I think if you take the house down, put a synagogue further out on Central and Franklin, give me some breathing space, because where this thing is going to be, I can't even look at the street anymore. I have to sit in my house and peer at the back of a supermarket. That's no comfort for me as a person. And so I am just stating these facts for the record, and for what I see, and for what I observe, and for what I know. There's no parking, no municipal parking, because both railroads, Woodmere and Hewlett, the people occupy that from Monday till Friday. And only on Saturday, when people are not going to the city, you have those parking lots. And during COVID, when people were working from home. So I'm just humbly presenting this. Again, I say I am not in opposition, but it needs adjustment. And thank you for hearing. Thank you for taking time out to listen to all of us. And I hope everything goes well and everybody will be happy at the end of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. John and Miriam Kalfa. Mr. Kalfa.
Hello, I'm John Kalfa. I own a house that is 5 doors down on West Broadway, and I've been a resident of Woodmere for 40 years. My wife's second generation, so she's been in 1015 West Broadway. So the past 40 years, traffic in this area has been absolutely crazy. The town has done studies on West Broadway, determined that the traffic needs to be fixed. That particular corner of North Central Avenue is a very narrow part of Central Avenue. As the previous speaker spoke, the supermarket and everybody parks along there. If this were to occur, you'd need to put no parking anytime on that block. Not only that, but deliveries for the supermarket, when it was changed from Key Food to the Gourmet, all of the deliveries come right across from the synagogue. Trucks double park there all the time. All of the deliveries come on Central Avenue, so there's a traffic jam already. The stop sign on West Broadway is always congested. You have to go around in order to get to West Broadway. You'd have to put a street light there. You'd have to make a lot of road changes in order to accommodate 41 families. And with regards to parking at Hewlett and Woodmere, I commuted for 30 years. There is no way. The only reason, no disrespect to the experts, they did a study on Memorial Day weekend week, which is very low. Everybody goes on vacation. There are no spots available from 7 o'clock on. So again, my concern is the traffic already in the area is very, very congested. To add this structure, add all the temporary buildings is going to create even more of a traffic jam. And again, Saturday night in Cedarhurst, or Friday night to Saturday night, parishioners actually park so that they can have a car to go home on Saturday. So they'll be walking there, but their cars will be there. So it'll create more of a traffic jam. So thank you for hearing me. I do have lots of concerns about this structure going up.
Thank you. Mr. Avertine, your turn to sum.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Regano, members of the board, for taking the time. Just to briefly respond first to Pastor Fine. In terms of I mentioned at the outset that we could move the trailers further to the east, but in speaking to Mr. Flaum, we can certainly go 7 feet. He said possibly up to 7.5 feet, depending upon what field conditions dictate once the partial demolition takes place. 8 feet would create a state code violation as a result of the proximity of the trailers to the existing home. So I would indicate that we could certainly go 7 feet and possibly another half foot. And I know the pastor indicated he wanted 8 feet. That's as close as we could come to the 8 feet. The gentleman didn't indicate whether he wanted shrubberies there. As I indicated previously, if the board approves the application, we, at the board's discretion, can put landscape buffer between the trailers and Mr. Pastor Fine's property in order to ameliorate visual impacts. If that's what the board deems appropriate, we can put in whatever screening the board indicates would be appropriate. And so as far as the parking and Mr. Mulryan's observations and report is documented, he certified it. Those were the counts. I understand that folks may feel differently based upon less sort of scientific type observations, but we know that in the evenings, commuter lots, whether they're filled during the day or not, people come home, and for evening services and such, the lots do have availability. And the numbers did indicate ample parking for any use that we would have at the property. Unfortunately, there are other commercial uses in the area that create inconveniences, shall I say, but that's not something that we can impact or at all affect. You've heard from the applicant and the folks from the community that support it, and they feel that it will be a very positive thing. And the most important thing to recognize also is that the trailers will be temporary. So while this may be perceived to be a problem for some, if the trailers are there, it's not a permanent thing. The goal here and the intent here and the eventuality here is a permanent building with the existing home being demolished, the trailers will be gone, and it will be a facility that suits the site. This, unfortunately, is dictated by the existing house and does create the best attempt we can to utilize what is there to make the situation work for the congregation. Thank you.
Mr. Avertine, we started about an hour ago to address the landscape. You did mention it now. One of the neighbors was opposed to it. I personally would like you to meet with the neighbors, you and whomever, to come up with a landscape plan and submit that.
Sure.
I think it's going to be important as a screening for the temporary trailers.
Absolutely.
Both on the west side and on the north
But
side of the property.
Assuming, though, that Pastor Fine does not want it, I don't know how the board would like
Well, then
us.
ask him, he'll sign off on it. How's that sound?
Well, he may not choose to, either way. So, I mean, we'll certainly do that, and like I said, we'll provide it, we won't provide it, whatever, we want to make whatever inconvenience the residents perceive minimized as much as possible. So if putting the landscaping in does that, we'll do it.
I think from a visual standpoint.
I don't disagree, but that's only my opinion.
Well, that's both of ours.
I understand, Mr. Pellegrini.
You're there and I'm here.
Maybe the
Yes.
opinion of more than one of us.
Right. It might be the opinion of
More than one.
I understand, I understand. I fully appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? If not, do I have a motion?
I move the hearing be closed, the case placed on the decision calendar. When the board reviews all the paperwork, Mrs. D'Amato will rejoin us, watching the live stream, reviewing the transcript as well, and she will participate in the decision.
Thank you,
all
sir.
for participating. And when the board renders a decision, everyone who's signed in will be notified by mail.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Welcome. Pardon? I know that. Pardon? Yeah, Stephanie, 5? Okay. Before we recall the last case,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we'll take a 5-minute break.
I thought it was it. Oh, is that what, you confused me, which isn't so hard.
Finally, we are recalling case 24223 Woodmere, Ronnie and Vanessa Lavosky. Variances, lot area occupied, height exceeds number of stories, rear yard, construct first, second, and third story additions, and wood deck, all attached to dwelling, also known as 931 Eileen Terrace. Sir, just your name and address for the record. I have you sworn in from earlier.
Test, there we go. Thomas DeMonico, 108 Merrick Road, Lipbrook, New York. After we had taken our adjournment, I contacted Mr. Luis Carnaval, who came over. I also found the section where he uploaded his comments on March 17th, which I could give to the board as a exhibit. In his comments there, he removes the third story determination. So it should have been modified as far as the denial. So we're looking at, I'm going to stick with the height for now. So the height is 33 feet, 8 inches. It's a gable end roof. There's only a small portion of that roof and it's actually the roof on the gable end all the way to the right side, which exceeds. We wanted to keep the proportions proper at the 6-on-12 pitch, which is why we're at that height. The
33 foot 8 inches is from what, grade?
Crown of the road.
Crown of the road, okay.
Correct.
Standard measurement that we use.
Correct.
Thank you. It's 33 feet 8 inches. So that would be 3 feet 8 inches above.
Right. A little bit over 1% of the height. The rear yard setbacks, the rear yard setback for the deck.
10% of the height.
Oh, I'm sorry.
10%.
10%. Thank you. Thank you. My math is bad.
It's okay.
Sorry about that.
I failed math too.
We
Go
have
ahead.
11 foot 5 towards the deck. The deck is a one-story deck. You have a permitted encroachment of 15 feet, so it only encroaches, 3.7 feet into that space as a one-story. We have another one-story addition, which is permitted because it doesn't encroach. And then there's the second-story addition, which encroaches just under 5 feet, 4 feet, 0.9 inches, 4.9 feet. It's at 20 feet, 20 foot 3 inches. The lot area occupied is at just over 30%, 30.14. The deck of that lot area is almost 2%. Obviously, we could make conditions to keep the deck in a never to be enclosed, left in an open, unenclosed, space. Never to be developed as habitable, livable space, with the, my client, Vanessa Lavosky, had, spoke earlier about her needs. We feel that this is a valid reason why she needs this, this type of addition, to have her children on the same level with her. We feel that it's unique in its design, and the situation is unique for this particular property. I also believe that this does not have any adverse effect on the surrounding neighborhood. There's no adverse effect on the environment. The relief sought here, we couldn't achieve this in any other means because we want to have all the bedrooms on the same level because of the needs of the family. I don't feel any of these variances are substantial, and I think this keeps in the character of the neighborhood. If there's any questions from the board.
Mr. DeMonico, since you concurred with Mr. Carnavale, the chief plans examiner, that you do not require a three-story.
Third story.
would you care to withdraw that portion of your application?
On the application that was submitted where it stated for 3 stories, to remove that, yes.
So you're withdrawing that, you're asking for 1- and 2-story addition, not a 3-story?
Not 3-story,
That's
correct.
off the table, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that your case?
That's my case.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other questions from the board? And if not, do I have a motion?
I move that the hearing be closed, the case placed on the decision calendar. When the board renders its decision, you will be notified by mail. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could I ask a question about the decision calendar? Approximately how much time?
Some cases are decided today, other cases take a little longer. If your case is decided today, you can call Patrick tomorrow morning
Very good.
and find out whether or not it was decided, and if so, which way.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Did anybody make the motion?
I did.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? That concludes the calendar for the day. We will now render the balance of the decisions on the cases that we have under our consideration.
My children.
You understand that all of these decisions are academic, because we'll all be dead in about a week unless they figure out how to get rid of the smoke. It's just the way it is. Okay?
Let's go.
Kind of lost it. Where's page 3?
369.
That's the one we
That's
just
where we're
heard.
starting.
Yeah, but where's the
Is that
rest of
the
it?
one we're doing first?
All right, so
The dog ate your papers?
did. Case 242 of 2023. Do I have any discussion from the board members?
I'd like to hold that.
Okay.
42?
Bad boys hell. Okay. Next case. Case 369 of 2023, Natasha and Jason Hunter and Eleanor James Coney. Do I have any discussion, any questions from the board members? If not, do I have a motion?
I move case 369 of 23 near Lynbrook at 4 Central Place be approved as requested, close at open permits, and there were neighbors in favor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Next case, 370 of 2023, 764 Sunrise LLC, DBA Dunkin' Donuts. Do I have any discussion? If not, do I have a motion?
I move that case 370 of 2023, 764 Sunrise LLC, DBA Dunkin' Donuts, to replace and install a menu board, that this case be granted for a term of 5 years with similar previously imposed conditions
Signed
that are
conditions.
applicable.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, any abstentions? Next case, 371 of 2023. Do I have any questions or comments from the board? I did inspect this property
You did.
beforehand, yep. I mean, the area, it faces the rear of a large shopping center that is improved by any number of trash dumpsters. So, I mean, with proper screening, but if any of you would like to visit the site, I'd be more than happy to hold a case.
We need 5 people. Yes.
And the question becomes, if it's granted, how long do we make the grant for? A year, 2 years? Because they've got an issue.
With the house.
I mean, I wanted to say that if they can get the tenants out by January 1st, I'll donate $3 million to have them build it, but I wouldn't go on the record.
You're that sure
I
of
mean,
it? That it
that's
won't happen?
never gonna
You
happen.
just did.
Not if they, not unless they buy the tenants
say,
out.
just
If they
gonna-
buy the tenants out, then it works. If they don't buy the tenants out, and I don't care whether you're Queens, Nassau, Suffolk, Brooklyn, I mean, Brooklyn, it'd be 5 years, but out here, it's gonna be at least a year. Unless the tenant cooperates. So a grant of a year, I think, is gonna be worthless. It's gonna be useless. But I'll defer to the greater knowledge.
You're looking at them.
I just speak with Mr. Milo briefly about this matter. We reviewed previous case that we did something similar.
Right.
Similarly was requested.
Mhm.
We discussed some language, so while I do believe that it'd be prudent for the board to inspect the properties, I'm going to start working on some
Yeah.
language and shuffling it over to the
Which
board.
incorporates all the prior,
Exactly,
yeah,
all the prior
yeah,
testimony
yeah, yeah.
and,
And you can include some screening in that one.
Yes,
Now,
absolutely.
ask for a plan, okay?
And I'll talk to Howard.
So we're gonna hold it.
Yep.
The bottom line is, we're gonna hold that case. Next case, cases 372 and 373 of 2023, Oceanside. Do I have any comments? There are a few open permits.
I don't like this one either. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's hold it, I'll look at it.
Okay, that's a hold, I believe. Unless you have anything else, that concludes the calendar.
You guys want to discuss that, please, on reserve? I have one administrative item.
I think I'd rather wait for Katora, yeah, because she'll have more than her share of inputs.
I have one administrative item, it is a request for a rehearing. This is a case that was granted on July 10th, 2019 for a three-part subdivision located in Woodmere on Milton Place. It was previously granted, we filed an extension of time timely, and then they filed for another extension of time, filed an extension of time was timely, granted that, the check bounced. So
No kidding.
we granted the extension of time because the check bounced.
God.
Now they have another check, hopefully it will not bounce.
Is it a personal check or teller's check?
It is a personal check from a company, exactly what they're reporting. So hopefully the corporation has money in the checking account. No, but this is not.
How are they gonna build these homes if their check for the permit bounces?
That's a good question, sir. Yeah, I'm not sure.
And you know, we don't collect bounce fees for that?
We don't?
No. They
Can
should-
we make it a condition?
They should charge like $100 administrative
Well,
fee to process.
I mean, do we get charged by the bank?
No.
Oh,
Yeah, but
come on.
how much time is it taking, you know? They should be reimbursed for their time and effort for a bounced check.
Okay.
And what I used to do, okay, you did it once, certified check or money order.
Condition,
See ya.
certified check, teller's check. They don't certify checks.
Oh, they
anymore.
don't?
No, yeah.
So do we want to discuss this next week, the certified check or
That's a
the
good,
petition?
that's a good
No,
idea, Mr.
tell them to come in with the teller's check. We don't trust them.
That's the only administrative item I have remaining, and that's all.
Anything else? Ladies, would you like to make comments? No? Just blown away with the proceedings, huh? All right, do I have a motion?
I move that we adjourn to next week, next Wednesday, June 14th.
Sold American. Second? All in favor? Well, come on, let you in. All in favor? Any opposed?